So let's talk about the origins of agriculture. Now, standing here in this garden, it's really hard to imagine or think about how novel and weird all of this is, because when we talk about agriculture, when we talk about growing plants, we first have to recognize that humans had to not eat all of their food. They had to leave some of the seed behind. They had to make sure they had some seeds ready to plant for the next year. And then when they did plant those seeds, they had to watch over them. They had to give the seeds water, defend the seeds from all kinds of predators. What we're not seeing in the garden right now are all of the rabbits and chipmunks and squirrels that are constantly attacking. And I actually don't see a whole lot of insects here today either, which is unusual, because typically there are all kinds of critters trying to get at the deliciousness in this garden. And so you have to defend against them. That takes a lot of energy. Then you have to harvest all of those food products. And you then have to store some of them or eat as many of them as you can right away. I mean, this concept of farming and agriculture that we now take for granted is just the way things are done, as just what you can do in your backyard. This was really, really a huge leap from hunting and gathering. Now, in the lecture slides, I talk about some of the benefits and drawbacks of hunting and gathering. I also talk about the benefits and drawbacks of agriculture and starting to farm. One of the biggest benefits was the idea that you could get a lot of food. You could get more food than you could ever possibly consume. What this then meant is that the human population could grow. But when you watch those little short videos that I've included, you'll see that not only do you get enough food to start to grow the human population, but then you also get some interesting side effects. One of those side effects is the development of currency and economic systems. The idea that if I grow 6 squashes and we all pile our squashes together, somebody or some way, something has to represent the idea that I grew 6 and contributed to the larger group. Somebody over here only grew 2. Somebody over here was really productive and grew 20. We have to represent the amount of resources, agricultural resources, that we contributed to the larger whole. So this is where we get those currency representations. We get economic systems. And one of the weird things is to look at currency. Like if you look at the US dollar, if you look at our money, you will still see images of wheat, images of barley. Our currency still has that deep connection to its agricultural roots. So we pile up all of our stuff together in these large storage units. We get this economic system going. Well, this is going to start to bring people into conflict, because you could put forth the effort, grow the seed, tend for the seed, harvest the plant product, and put in all of this work and effort. Or you could just go steal somebody else's. Now we start to see some of those war systems. One of the themes that we're going to see throughout this semester is this relationship between conflict, specifically war, and agricultural systems. The technology influences each other. Technological developments in agriculture can influence conflict, and conflict, the technological developments in winning and working through those conflicts can reflect back and influence agriculture. So that's another big side effect of agricultural practices. With agriculture, we see cities start to develop, people start to settle down in these centralized locations. And then my favorite part of agriculture is the idea that people were able to start reaching out to one another and trading. This is one of those sort of wonderful parts about humans. Humans love to share, and they really love to share what they eat. And so as groups of people started to trade, they started to learn about new plant products, and then those plant products became part of their identity. So of course we incorporate that food into our meals, and then that food becomes part of how we identify with another group of people, identify with a place in the landscape, a geographic location. These plants become part of who we are. And so one of the themes that we're going to learn is how everywhere across the planet People found plants that they could use for all of the different things that they needed. And then they shared those plants with other groups of people. Those groups of people then took in those plants, and those plants became part of their identity. So, looking across this garden, I've got eggplant growing here, and we've got some tomatoes growing, and maybe you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's making me think Italian, Mediterranean. I'm starting to get really hungry. But the crazy thing here is that neither of these plants originated in Italy at all. The eggplant first originated in India, and then people trading it brought it to Italy, and it loved the temperature there, the climate, and grew really well. So the people in Italy were like, yeah, we can make this happen. Tomatoes come from Central America. So when we think about Italian cuisine, and it's so rooted in the tomato, that's such a myth, because until we had that cross-Atlantic transport of tomatoes, the tomatoes were never a part of Italian cuisine or that Mediterranean cuisine. So finding this out, where plants first speciated on our planet, where they originated, can bring about a little bit of a cultural crisis, because you have to start to wonder, what does it then mean to be part of a group of people, part of a culture, if all of the things that they eat and that are quintessentially identified as part of their culture came from somewhere else? Well, that's a discussion that you will have with the humanities. That's a discussion for another class. This is botany, and we have to stay focused on the botany of these plants, how they grow, what their body plans are. The idea that when we're looking at a plant, there's only 3 organs: a leaf, a stem, and a root. The flowers and the fruit on these plants are both just modified leaves, and plants are going to do all kinds of weird, funky things with their bodies, which is why we can get all of the differences, all of the variation that we see in the squashes and eggplants and tomato and peppers. All of these look very, very distinctly different and grow very differently from one another. And yet, they're only using 3 organs: a leaf, a stem, and a root. And they just get to do different things with those organs. So, we look at the origins of agriculture and the agricultural systems and practices that arguably we still practice today and we still take advantage of today. We have to think like those early groups of people, or like the people who are still practicing hunting and gathering. We can watch how they do things and then start to extrapolate, start to imagine what those early people might have done, the decisions that they made, how that would have led to the systems that we have today. We also have to keep in mind that a lot of the decisions were driven by the specific plant. So when we get into the grasses, we're going to talk about a very specific structure in the grasses that allowed humans to start to domesticate them. And this is why grasses became so crucial to the development of agriculture. This first unit in this class is all about learning about food. I want to get you interested, curious, and for those of you who, like me, are very, very driven by food, hopefully I can help get you interested in those botanical details. So when we get into the process of photosynthesis, when we talk about the cells doing all of the work here, it doesn't seem as overwhelming, or at least you know that we'll get back to talking more about the fun stuff and all of the weird things that plants can do, like the idea that this eggplant, if it hadn't been domesticated, could kill us, and we have to be careful that a lot of its relatives are still producing the poison that can kill us. So we have to be careful in what we choose to eat, how we choose to grow the plant. As always, if you have any questions, please email me.